Representative Holly is recognized to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hi, El-Mahdi.
Sorry about that. Technology is not always our friend.
I certainly understand that, Representative. I'm with you on that one. You're good.
Today I asked my colleagues to table this motion, but I would like to recognize Georgians who have made themselves available for us today. For seated in the House gallery are members of Jewish Voice for Peace Atlanta, the Atlanta Multi-Faith Coalition for Palestine, Voices for Muslims, and Christian faith leaders who rise briefly for this measure, just in a silent moment of support. Thank you. I would like to read a brief statement given to me by Jewish Voice for Peace Atlanta. As members of Georgia's Jewish community, we recognize the pain and loss of life that has been endured by families across Israel and Palestine. However, we refuse to allow our government and the government of Israel to twist our grief to justify the terrorizing, hateful, and dehumanizing campaign of violence against the Palestinian people. We are deeply opposed to such one-sided resolution that does not mention Palestinian life a single time. We are particularly concerned with lines 17 to 19, which describes the, and we quote, brave Israeli soldiers who are exercising their nation's right to self-defense, and we stand with Israel, end quote. What Israel and their soldiers are currently doing in Gaza and the West Bank goes far beyond self-defense. We have all watched the bloodshed on our screens, the children reaching out of underneath the rubble under their homes, the premature babies left alone to die because of the bombings and attacks on Palestinian hospitals. Atrocities, killing, and more civilian bloodshed will not bring back those who were killed and will not save those still held captive. Jewish people are not a monolith. Anyone who claims to speak for an entire group of people is not only wrong, but is attempting to manipulate you. There is a sea change happening within the Jewish community, and millions of Jews across the world are no longer willing to unquestionably pledge their allegiance to Israel. We urge you to have the same courage and do the same. Instead of passing one-sided resolutions or legislation that has no bearing in our state of Georgia, we would hope that this legislative body would focus on supporting the actual needs of Georgians, such as ensuring that all people have fair and equal representation in our state's electoral bodies. This is a message that was echoed also by the Churches of Middle East Peace on November 13th, in their letter stating that we condemn the collective punishment imposed upon more than 2.2 million Palestinians living in Gaza. And on October 8th, the Israeli government cut off water, gas, and electricity, and all goods and supplies to the territory, putting even more pressure on a community suffering from a humanitarian crisis more than a decade in the making. We further condemn Israel's large-scale air bombardment and ground invasion that continues to have an indiscriminate and tragically disproportionate impact on civilians. We further support a demilitarization of the conflict rather than supplying additional military aid or arms to Israel at this time. For the U.S. already sends $3.8 billion per year in military assistance to Israel, for which effectively the United States has not imposed consequences for its gross violations of human rights as required in the U.S. laws. Additionally, Military aid will only prolong Israel's offensive, will lead to more Palestinian civilian deaths, and will not likely be subject to any accountability. Peace with justice is the only lasting solution that will protect the long-term security and sustainability for the State of Israel and self-determination and independence of Palestinians. And for the United States must demonstrate its commitment to the protection of all human life, advocating for a just and durable resolution to this crisis in which all Israelis and Palestinians must realize a vision of a just peace, illuminating human dignity and advancing security and self-determination for all. This was signed by the American Baptist Churches of USA, American Friends Service Committee, the Lot Carey Foreign Mission Convention, the United Church of Christ, the United Methodist Church, and the National Council of Churches. Sentiments such as these expressing similarly have been echoed by the respected pastors, Dr. Cynthia Hale of Ray of Hope Christian Church, and Pastor Jamal Bryant of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, among 1,000 black faith leaders addressing this to President Biden. Among labor unions, the United Auto Workers of America have demanded an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Finally, I'd like to share an excerpt, a letter from the Georgia Muslims Coalition. It's an open letter to Georgia representatives and senators seeking personal support for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. It reads, as concerned citizens who value justice and peace on a national and on a global scale, we are compelled to share our concerns with you collectively about the direction of the one-sided support in this resolution. On behalf of our diverse collective, we present the request to demand an immediate ceasefire, calling for an unconditional ceasefire from all sides to the conflict. To bring United States citizens home, make it a priority policy position for bringing all American Palestinians that are stuck in Gaza back to the United States. To end occupation for permanent peace, to prevent and reverse any temporary and permanent displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. The Muslim American community has worked tirelessly for decades to deepen its civic engagement with the belief that the United States, a champion of democracy and human rights, will play a critical role in fostering a just and fair resolution to the complex issues facing the country, including those that have plagued the Middle East for decades. Saying, we urge you as representatives of the Muslim American community to stand for justice and support a balanced approach that promotes peace. We are certain that the path forward cannot look like the past, as much damage has been done by our elected representatives. We remain committed to the principles of equality and justice and hope that we can find a path forward working with you and our national leadership to foster a more balanced and constructive approach based on international law to bring peace to the Israeli and Palestinian people. Sincerely, the Georgia Muslim Coalition, in partnership with Al-Hasna Masjid of Beaufort, Georgia, Al-Medina Masjid of North Atlanta, Albany Community Masjid, the Anhar Institute of Atlanta, Georgia, the Athens Masjid of Atlanta, the Athens Muslim Hub, the Bosnian Community Center of Georgia, the Burmese Rohingya Community of Georgia, the Council on American Islamic Relations, Georgia, East Cobb Islamic Center in Marietta, the Ethar of Clarkston, Gainesville Islamic Cultural Center of Gainesville, Georgia, the Georgia Muslim Voters Project, the Greenview Madani Center of Lawrenceville, Georgia, the Gwinnett Islamic Center of Suwanee, the Hamza Islamic Center of Alpharetta, Hindus for Human Rights, the ICNA Council for Social Justice, the Indian American Muslim Council of Atlanta, the Islamic Center of Columbus, Georgia, the Islamic Center of Duluth, Georgia, the Islamic Center of Middle Georgia, the Islamic Center of West Georgia in Douglasville, the Islamic Society of Augusta, Jewish Voice for Peace, the Atlanta chapter, Justice America, United States, LaGrange Islamic Center in LaGrange, Georgia, the Macon Community Masjid in Macon, Georgia, the Medina Institute of Duluth, the March 15th Forum Combating Islamophobia, USA, the Masjid Abu Bakr in Brookhaven, Georgia, Masjid Al-Farouk of Atlanta, Georgia, Masjid Al-Quba in Beaufort, Georgia, Masjid Al-Furqan of West Cobb Islamic Center in Marietta, Masjid Al-Mu'min of Atlanta, Georgia, Masjid Al-Rahman of Cumming, Georgia, Masjid Jafar of Johns Creek, Georgia, Masjid Omar bin Abdulaziz in Lilburn, Georgia, Masjid Sumaya of Peachtree Corners, Masjid Sufa of Kennesaw, Muslim American Society of Atlanta, Georgia, the Muslim Community Center of Peachtree Corners, Georgia, Manipur Tribal Association, USA One Ummah Project, Roswell Community Masjid, Savannah Community Masjid, the Surah Foundation, Somali American Community Center, Valdosta, Voices of Muslims, and Muslims of USA. All are together in not supporting this resolution. I'm thankful to be here as a man of Christian faith, 25 years since my baptism, and being wholly standing alongside them to vote no, should be given the time, but for now to table this measure. Thank you.
Gentlemen, has yielded the well. Members will refrain.